Welcome back, everyone. We have an interesting afternoon, beginning with a provocative question from my friend Rick Good, with whom I've been associated for 35 years now. Good Lord. Rick came for a reading long ago, and that and that started our, that was in 1976, when I owned something called the Question Shop. What it was, I still don't know. But Rick and I have done a lot of work on the 7 rays. Now that was Uranus. That was an intrusion into my head. Hello, are there any webinarians left? Down 5, okay? Down 5. Wiped them out. Anyway, we have a provocative question here. What is astrology? And I don't know what Rick's approach is going to be, but I know it's going to be interesting. So take it away, Mr. Good. All right.
There's a couple different answers. One, we got a big bear here, okay, and esoteric astrology might actually be studying the big bear, okay. That's one answer. Another answer, okay, and I know you all have your own, okay, might be simply the study of energy. Right? Okay, and then why do we study astrological energy? Why do you study astrological energy? Any answers? Many answers. Okay, but I suspect you study it to understand yourself, to understand others. Okay, and you do that, okay, for many reasons. Know thyself, Plato's Know Thyself. Okay, but there are other energies that you can study, and one of them is obviously the rays, which is one of the reasons that everybody is here, I expect. And most of you are familiar with the rays, okay, so I'm not going to go into detail on them, okay. I will go into them a little bit. How many are there? Okay, as you know, there are 7. The first ray is, okay, obviously 1, okay, and the strengths of that, and I'm not going to go into this in any detail, okay, I will put them on the screen, okay, you know, the strengths, power to direct and govern, and the rest are on there, okay, but you're familiar with them, so I'm not going to go into them in any detail. And the weaknesses are also there. Domination, destructive violence, okay? And ray 2 is what? Okay, love, wisdom. I should mention that this is the symbol. Okay, and here are some strengths: living understanding, compassion. Okay, weaknesses: oversensitivity, vulnerability. Ray 3 is abstract wisdom, adaptability. Okay, strengths, mental fertility. Okay, weaknesses: intellectual pride. Ray 4 is, okay, harmony through conflict. Right? Okay. And I'll mention this a little bit more, strengths for adaptability. This is a Ray 4 conference, right, mainly. So, ability to meditate, resolve conflicts, capacity for bridging, love of beauty. Okay, and you can read those. Okay, and then we have the problems of vacillation, ambivalence, combativeness, etc. Okay, then we have Ray 5, which is concrete knowledge and science. Okay, keen and focused intellect. Okay, critical and narrow. Okay, Ray 6 is devotion. Okay, and then we have strengths, idealism. Okay, blind faith, rigid. Okay, and ray 7, the last one is organization and ceremonial magic. Okay. Okay, so you know all 7. Okay, and astrology has planets, which is energy, and it also has houses. Whoops. Okay, which indicate one area of life which energy has the greatest influence. We all know that. Okay, and the rays also has energy, are also energy, and we have vehicles, which you should realize, okay, which are in one's life with the energy, which is sort of like houses, which is where energy has its greatest influence. And what are the vehicles? You know the vehicles? Okay, you should know the vehicles. Starting with the densest, okay, we have physical, emotional, right? Okay. Then we have mind, okay, personality, soul, and for some of us, well, for all of us, okay, which you may not be aware of, but most of us are, monad, okay, but we don't know what it is. Okay, so if we put the astrology and rays together, what we really should be looking for, or looking at, is what is the influence of a particular planet in a particular house, in a particular ray, in a particular vehicle. Right? Okay, and then we should be looking at, as Mike passed out this morning, okay, but not only the NATO, but the solar arc and present planets and, everything else, including the aspects, it gets really complex. Okay, but the point that I'm trying to make is you also have to take into consideration the rays and the vehicles. And I'm not sure how many people are doing that. I think Mike does, okay, and I think some other people do, okay, but that's one of the things that seems to be missing with an awful lot of individuals, okay, in their astrological practices. And that's one of the things that we're trying to get people to start working on. And I think it's one of the directions that we're going to end up going as the Aquarian age starts to approach. So how does one determine at least the most important rays that one has? Okay, there's obviously a number of ways to do this. The easiest way, well, maybe not the easiest way, but one way to do it, okay, is to find a master. Okay? Well, it's an easy way. I mean, you go find a master, the master tells you the answer. Okay? Well, it's easy because you don't have to do anything except find that master. Of course, the hard thing might be to find the master. There's actually a lot of people out there that say they're a master. Okay? The problem might be whether they're actually a master. Right? Okay. Another way to do it, okay, might be to meditate. Okay, you can meditate. I don't know anyone that have actually found their rays by meditating, but I think that, maybe if you do that for a couple thousand years, it might work. Okay, there are some books around that you can read. Okay, Michael has a very good books, I should say, Tapestry of the Gods. Okay, did anyone ever tell you that Tapestry of the Gods is now on ebooks? Okay, oh, one person did. Okay, it's on Apple and Amazon. Okay, that $9.99, I should mention. Okay, Kindle and Apple eBooks. Okay, I should mention that. Okay, very inexpensive. Okay, also the bookstore over here will have them on hard copy. Okay, so that's a possibility. They're in theory. Okay, you might be able to figure it out astrologically. Nicholas has some theories on that. They have not been proven. Okay, but someday they might. The problem with what is the problem with proving it astrologically? Anybody have any ideas? Well, what do you need to do? I guess there aren't a lot of fifth ray here. No? Well, in order to prove it in order to scientifically prove it, okay, what you would have to do is obviously you need an astrological chart, okay? But in order to do it, the best way to do it is through triangulation. So what you need to do is you need to get, first of all, some experts, okay, to determine what the rays are for the individual. And there's very few experts that can actually do that. Then you have to have a separate instrument, which is one of the things I'm going to talk to you about, okay, that will independently determine what the rays are for the individual. And then actually you should have a third instrument that does the same thing. That's called triangulation. And then you have to do that for thousands of people, okay? And then after doing that, you have to do a statistical analysis, and then you can sit there and after all of that, you can determine whether the astrological theory works. Nobody's been able to do that yet, okay? Someday we might be able to do that. The instrument that I'm going to talk to you about, okay, is one instrument that is working to do that, but it's not there yet. Okay, hopefully someday. So the instrument we're talking about, okay, is something called, okay, the PIP3, PIP2, online. Okay, the PIP3, okay, is the direction that we're going. Okay, we're not there yet. Okay, so what this is, it's a unique self-assessment tool which is based on the 7 rays, part of the ageless wisdom, and used to help people gain insight into themselves, their purpose, and their life direction. Okay, and this is a website. Okay, it's a unique self-assessment. Didn't press the button. It's a website for the PIP2 that will help you determine. So let's go look at it. Okay, I think I can do this. Let's go look at it. Okay. Oops, I didn't. Oh. Is there anyone here who can read? So, what does it say? Oh. What? Home. Go home. Okay. Okay, so obviously, okay, nobody else can read it? Okay, so obviously, Alina can read it, okay? This is translated, okay? This is in Slavic, right? Okay, so this is the PIP2, okay? And it's obviously translated. Okay, I'll make it easier for you. Okay. Okay. Boy, this is slow. Have we got? Is this going to be really? Is this? Have we got? Is this? Is this? This is just slow? Okay. What? Okay. Okay. That might be a little bit closer. Hmm? Okay. Okay. Well, we can. Well, the difficulty is, yeah, we're backwards. Yeah. Yeah. It's not there. That's the problem. Yeah, that'll work. Network. Network. Yeah, just network name. Here. No, we were fine. Yeah, but here. Network name. Dobson? Okay. You got it. Sub. It looks like this is a password.
Yes.
Yeah. 8 Q W B dash 4 B C Q dash 2 7 H Z return. That's that.
Wrong password.
Wrong password. You're on, but okay.
Hey, Bob.
It's not Slovakian. Okay. Okay, now, I've got to be fair here, okay, and indicate that I was actually going to go down here to the Portuguese, okay, because Tanya has done that, and I needed to thank her also, right? Okay, I mean, because we do have two translators in the room, okay, that have done a marvelous, marvelous job, okay, you know, that deserve to be thanked. There are an additional 10 translations being done, okay, including, you know, Russian and Hebrew, and some of the translators have gone through difficult times, okay? You know, we're talking about family problems, we're talking about breakdowns in computers, we're talking about government, okay? We're talking about physical threats, you know? We're talking about religious, you know, turmoil. We're talking, you know, we don't want to get into it, okay? But it's been difficult. Okay, so, you know, I'm not going to, this is obviously the English version, okay? And obviously, if you can count, okay, there are 7 rays and there are presently 7 translations, okay? And I'm not going to tell you which translation is which ray. You've got to figure that out for yourself, okay? You know, okay, and, you know, it's history, overview, examples, okay? Since we're sort of not having a lot of time left, I don't know if you know where we are on time, okay? But the not the overview, let me just go through examples, okay? And show you some of the examples, some of the charts, okay, that we have, okay? These are rays now, okay? So that you can sit there and see, okay, that it gives you the rays as they are now for the individual, okay? And we also have the rays formerly for the individual, okay? And then we have the A's and the B's. And if you're not familiar with the A's and the B's, what it amounts to is, at least in theory, okay, each of the rays have at least 2 components. You know, when you think of, well, let's take the second ray, because that's actually the easiest ray to do this with, okay? We think of it as love, wisdom, okay? The A part is the love, okay? The B part is the wisdom. A is Christ, B is Buddha, okay? So most individuals on ray 2, okay, have, you know, either are on the side of Christ, the love side, or B, the Buddha side. Okay, and you can do that with all of the rays. Okay, and in theory, okay, you know, at least it's been theorized, I'll put it that way. Okay, not only are there 2 components, okay, but there are actually 7 subrays of each of the 7 rays. Okay, but we have not been able to categorize, okay, the rays to that fine a distinction yet. Okay, so this will give an individual some degree, some indication as to how fine we can go at the moment. Let me see, how can I do this? So we also have other indications on here. Okay, we have ray type elevations, okay, which explains some degree of what's changed. We have now and formerly. We also we added a number of different things here. One of the things that we recently added, we changed the manual. The manual was 108 pages. Okay, now we've changed it so that it's 122 pages in letter size. But because we've made it an international website, okay, we also have an A4 manual. And that A4 manual is, I believe, 124 pages. Either that or I've got it reversed. Actually, I think I have it reversed. The letter size is 124 pages, and the A4 is 122 pages. Not that it makes a lot of difference. We also have people that are translating the manual, okay, into what would it be? Into different languages. The manual consists of not only an explanation of the PIP2, but it also goes into a definition of the rays, a definition of astrology, a definition of the houses, a definition of a lot of the components of esoteric astrology. And therefore, not only is it good, okay, for, how can I do it? Just talking about the PIP2, okay, but it gives a fairly good idea of esoteric astrology and helps to, how can I do it? Helps people understand some of the ancient wisdom. So it's a very good introduction to the ancient wisdom itself. One of the recent things we've also done is add a 1 or 2 day workshop for individuals. Now these are all the components that an individual would need to do for their own workshop. Okay, so if you are, if you want to do like a neighborhood workshop for your friends and neighbors, okay, this will give you everything that you need to do for a 1 or 2 day workshop. This is an astrology pre-day. This is a pre-conference for astrologers. Okay, if you just wanted to do a 7-ray workshop, it would be 1 day. If you wanted to do a 7-day plus astrology workshop, it would be 2 days. Okay, so for the astrologers in here, this will give you all of the information to do a 7-ray plus astrology workshop for your friends and neighbors, so it'll give you the charts, okay, so, you could do something, we're doing what, 3 days here, okay, you could do something, that'll give you everything you need, guess what, free, okay, doesn't cost a thing. Let me see, what else do you need to know about this? I don't think anything, okay, let me see. What else can I tell you? Anything? It's a bunch of statements. Okay. Mainly. Okay. There's 117 statements. Okay. It's taken a lot of years. I think we started this in '85. Okay, and then in '92 we modified it. Okay, there was originally 20 statements. Actually, we actually started with 1,000 statements. Okay, then we broke that down to 20 statements per question, so there were 140 statements. Now there are 117 statements. So we ended up breaking it down after a statistical study, a very complete statistical study. But all of that's in the history. Okay, how are we doing on time? Oh, we have another 15 minutes? Okay. Okay. In that case, well, let me see. I'll answer the questions and we can go from there. Yeah. Yeah. I guess it means two things. Well, first of all, we do not specify, okay, the difference between now and formerly. Okay, that it's in the person's mind. Okay, one of the things that we found is that with some individuals, not with all, okay, but with some individuals, there is a perceived difference between the movement of the personality and the soul. Okay, so when the individual moves from the personality to the soul, okay, you know, the personality was former, okay, and the soul is now. But again, you know, there's a lot of things to take into consideration, but that's one of them that we can look at. Yeah.
It's sounding like you can take this online now. Now, does it allow you to save your questionnaire as you're going along, or do you have to do it all in one sitting?
You can take it, it saves it. Okay? There are a couple advantages of doing it online, okay? You can answer like 3 questions, okay, and then go offline, okay, come back, answer 10 questions, go offline, come back, answer 100 questions, go offline and finish it. Okay, and obviously you need to know your login and password each time. Okay, well, you don't need to. Your login is always your, I can't even think.
Email address?
Yeah, your email address, okay, and but if you forget your password, we can email it to you. Okay, you know, if you forget your email address, we can't do anything. Okay, you know, so that's fairly easy. Okay, the other thing is that having it online, okay, if you want someone else to look at your results, okay, you can do that. We can have someone else look at your results, you know, because you can send them the results, or you can send them your email address, okay, and your login, and have them look at it, or you can print out your results or save them as a PDF file, okay. Or the other thing is you can go to a friend's house, okay, and you don't have to bring your computer or something else, okay, and look at the results. Someone coming here, okay, on the plane, okay, saved their results as a PDF file and therefore reviewed the results coming here. You know, so it's very, very easy to do now.
And then are you able to access previous results, like for those of us that have taken it with you in the past? Are those there for us to access, or?
You can look at one of the things we ended up doing is there were individuals that took it in like 93, okay, obviously well before last year when we made it online, and I was able to take their results, okay, and through a difficult transition period, put them online, okay, so that they can see their results from like 93. But if they want to compare the results from like 93 and today, the only thing the only cravat I have is you can only have one email address per result. Okay, so if you want to compare 2 results, you need 2 email addresses. Okay, but I also, in writing them, okay, and telling them that they could do that, okay, I indicated that they could make up an email address. If they, you can either go to like, Yahoo or
Go to Yahoo or something. Yeah.
Gmail or something like that, and make up come up with a new email address, okay, or you can make one up. I really don't check, okay, to make sure it's a legitimate email address. I do some checking,
And
but
so
not a lot.
if we want access to those old results, do we need to email you in order for you to post them?
Yes.
Or are they already there somehow?
Yeah, and if they email me and say, I don't have access to this old email address, okay, I can change the old email address to something else.
See, I think one thing we should understand is that the rays are in flux all the time. DK simplified the matter for us. He said you have essentially this type of body, this type of emotions, this type of mind, but these proportions are always varying. Your personality ray can change in the same life. Your mental ray can change. Powerful astrological influences can come in and reinforce certain rays or reduce certain rays. So it's a dynamic situation, and we hope that the PIP over time can somewhat reflect that. So, how many, we have 7 languages going at the present time. We're interested in new,
We have 8.
eight in translators who know various languages where this can be spread, and we know why this is so. Because DK told us that if occultism is ever to reach the public, it will be reached through psychology. Okay, this is one of the major tools of esoteric psychology, and therefore we want to spread this rather easy to understand method among as many people as we can. It doesn't mean it's easy to determine what the rays are, but the idea is easy. When you look at the complexity of astrological energies that you have, and you think about the simplicity of the ray chart, this gives someone a real handle on their identity, and it helps them also determine the imbalances in their nature. And of course, along with this, Dyna 1 and Dyna 2 should be studied with the astrological charts that Ellen is working on, and with the ray charts of the people which are already given. This would be the best way of getting into practical esoteric psychology. Yeah? Any questions? How many of you have taken it online? Okay, well, why not go there and take it online and see who you are now? Things may have changed for the better, even. Yeah, I've been threatening to take it myself. Yeah, I know. I mean, especially you can kind of manipulate this in your mind, and that's the problem. But I try to be totally honest, and just see how it all stacks up now, and then what to cultivate as well. So Rick and I worked on an advanced test. We called it the Terra, not terror, but Terra. It had 800 and how many questions? I forget. Anyway, but a few people took it. 40 people, Lawson among them. Of course, it was never graded. Actually, we had a Terra grading party. Heidi came over. We had a bunch of people. This was back in the 90s. And we were actually trying to get into the triadal rays and all the rest of it. But it turned out to be too complicated to grade. But we're working on it. It may be the basis of PIP 3, something like that, along with your, physiognomy and all the rest of it. We keep planning that, but it just takes more than one life, I think. Something, I don't know. But it's a lot of fun. There are 45 people took that, and the questions were very probing. And probably you'll learn something if you took it. I have them somewhere. They're very thick. Okay. It takes about a day to take that test. Okay. Well, all right. Anything else, Rick? That's it?
No, we're just, we're working on translations. We're sitting there and trying to get the manual translated. The difficulty with the manual, okay, is it's big. Okay. The problem that we're having is that, it's sort of like a chicken and egg situation, okay, in many of these countries that don't have a lot of knowledge of the ancient wisdom, okay, it's difficult to sit there and get them enthusiastic about the ageless wisdom, okay, without them, having knowledge of it, okay, and without them having knowledge of it, it's difficult to sit there and provide them, the material, so getting people to translate it into a language where they don't have the knowledge of the ancient wisdom is difficult to find people that are willing to, do the translation. So, so it's hard, and it's expensive to get professional translators. I mean, it's like $5,000 in order to, get one of the manuals translated, so that's a real problem. So we've had over 1,000 people, take the PIP2 online so far in the last year, so I think that's something to be said, okay, and as I said, we've got, 10 more languages coming along the line, so I would imagine, those will be done within the next year. I don't know when the PIP3, 4 or 5, the ideal, okay, is to be coming up with an instrument, because the weakness at the moment is that we can't put the rays into the vehicles. And the problem with putting the rays into the vehicles is that in order to do that, we need to know where the person is on the path. Okay? We've got miscellaneous questions that we added when we came out with the PIP2, okay, in order to try to indicate where the person is on the path, but so far we can't do that. And hopefully when we come out with the PIP3 or the PIP4 or the PIP5, we'll be able to do that. And what's the advantage of doing that? Can anybody tell me what the advantage of being able to put the rays in the vehicles will be?
Because that's where the person's consciousness is focused. So if you see that ray 2 is very high, but you're knowing that the personality is looming large in the person's life, then you would think, perhaps 2 is the personality. Whereas if the soul is looming large in the life, then you might see that very elevated 2 and go, we're looking at the soul ray.
Good point, Lawson.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Or the astral body or the mind, for that matter.
Depends
Because
on
there are
where
people
you're
at those
focused.
levels. But people who are strictly in their astral body wouldn't get through this test.
No. Not enough inducements.
No, right. A little incentive at the end.
But there's a side benefit, okay, and the side benefit, okay, of being able to put the rays in the vehicles, okay, is that we'll actually be able to prove that the vehicles exist. What happens when we prove that the vehicles exist? Well, if we prove that the vehicles exist, okay, then in essence what we've done is that, in a sense, okay, we're at the point, okay, where we've proven, hopefully, that the soul exists. Okay? And if we prove that the soul exists, okay, then one of the major fears, okay, that mankind has, okay, that of death, disappears.
Okay.
I mean, think about that. Now, obviously, DK said, okay, that the French, okay, will be proved, okay, that the soul exists. Okay? DK did not say that we can't help. Okay?
Right.
I didn't read anything that said we can't help. Okay? So,
Well,
one of my goals is to help. Okay? And this is one of the, I'm serious, PIP 3, 4, 5, I don't care. Okay? If we can just help. Okay? I think that's sort of a nice thing to do. Okay? And that's one of the things about the Aquarian age. The Piscean age okay, is based on faith. Okay? Faith says, you know, we're going to reincarnate. Okay? Faith doesn't say, you know, but the Aquarian age, okay, intellect. Okay? Proof. Okay? And proof that the soul exists. Okay? You know, and that's one of the tantamount things of the Aquarian age, okay, is that, you know, the soul exists, okay, and the fear of death is going to be overcome. Okay? And if we can do that with the PIP, partially, let's not get carried away, you know, that'll help.
Well, he says one day the rays will be capable of what he calls expert diagnosis. Expert diagnosis. We're a long way from being experts on this, but the personality ray of the Aquarian age is the fifth ray. And so obviously there's a lot of the fifth ray approach involved in the numerical statistical methods of this PIP design, and we'll be moving in that direction, you know, to actually use that to quantify the quality, Okay, Rick, thank you very much for all of your work on this.
Okay.